Hey guys, my name is Patrick Hart, and welcome to episode 7 already of Undeterred, the Dem-NPL podcast in the best state in the Midwest, North Dakota. I couldn't believe it. Actually, you guys, I interviewed our guest interviewee this week, Katrina Christiansen, and I typed out yesterday in the notes episode 7, and I can't believe it's gone so quickly, even though sometimes the days and weeks seem like they're eking on. So thanks to all the viewers. I appreciate you for viewing, for listening. Thanks, of course, to Lisa and Jamie, our co-host on uNDeterred, and of course, all of the guests that we've been able to interview so far. I will say right away, we're missing Jamie Selzler today. I'm kind of sad, but Jamie is currently in Grand Forks as we're filming, doing their reorg, which you hear us pushing every week because we do want everyone involved. And I'll maybe hand it over to Lisa in just quick in a second, but we've had like record turnout at our reorgs. People that I haven't seen enter the party and lean in, as I like to say, since the Bernie years. Lisa, you've been to several of these as you're running for vice chair. What have you seen?
Yes, we've seen a great turnout at every single one of them. When Adam and I went to the one in Fargo, they were completely blown away by how many new people. That was their first one that they had been to. And it was a very exciting time and to witness that. And that's also a big push everywhere across the state. I mean, Minot, our group has grown tremendously. And like I said, it feels good. It feels like we're doing something right and we're seeing people step up. We're really excited to see new people into these leadership positions and within their districts. So it's great, and I'm going to be busy this next month as well with it, making sure that I can get to as many as possible. But I really look forward to them. It's a good time.
Well, and I'll tell you, when I first volunteered for the Democrats to call people, because I love calling people, I made like 100 phone calls to invite people to the reorg in Bismarck. And when I went to my first meeting, the only expectation, the only idea I had was that I wanted to help my community. I wanted to stand up for what I saw was happening in Washington. And I went. That was my call to action. And walking into that meeting, as I look back now on my quote unquote volunteer career, meeting the president, Tom Perez, I mean, just a whole host of people I got to take selfies with, just like everyone, you can name it. And beyond those national moments, locally, meeting people like Byron and Bernice Knudsen, who walked with, Martin Luther King. Like, we have such local rock stars. Was able to get off the phone with Ryan Taylor, a man that I definitely look up to in a high level of leadership. And really my success that I would say is just continuing to lean in, continuing to say yes, and to be as helpful and as functional of a volunteer as possible. Kind of lost my breath at the end. Could you catch that? Lisa, why did you step in? What was your kind of call to action? Can I ask you on that one?
Just going around and talking to people, hearing how things are personally impacting them. And honestly, it's what you see coming out of Bismarck. And it's the same thing every time. And it's the same type of people getting elected into these positions, and a lot of times without much effort. And I just felt compelled to not only just run, but help my community and show that we're not all the same. We don't have people that are running with bad intentions. We have people who are out there doing good and wanting things to genuinely change here in North Dakota. And I just wanted to be that example. And of course, I wanted to be that example for my kids. And that was a pivotal moment for me as well in my life, because I learned so much about myself. And this is what we need. We need people to get out of their comfort zones. And that's exactly what it did for me. And I'm so glad that I did it. And I hope other people decide to do the same.
Well, and as we kind of go into these episodes, we have things that are on our mind. I know last week, Jamie and I, in our introduction, talked about good governance. And this week, I wanted to bring in leadership. And why I want to bring in leadership, and I'll have a quick story. I was in Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago for a DNC event. And a handful of us were selected to go to the Taiwanese embassy. Embassy of Taiwan. Super, super humbled to be brought into that atmosphere. And at that time, the war on Ukraine had just started, and they had these drinks, these cocktails that were blue and yellow. I don't have any idea what was in them. But I bring that up because, again, volunteering, coming to these reorgs, leaning in, you would be absolutely amazed at the places you'll go when you act without the intention of getting compensation in return. Like Lisa said, and like I'll say, I just want to do good by my friends and family and my community. That's the only reason I'm here. I don't have alternative agendas. And I'll bring that in, and I'll bring Ukraine up again, because as we talk about leadership, I think a true testament of character is what you do behind closed doors and the intent that you have when you're making decisions, when you're acting. And I bring that up because this week I was really dismayed by interview, a negotiation, a media stunt. We could use a couple different words to describe what happened between President Zelensky and President Trump. But what I saw is a lack of integrity. I saw one gentleman coming into a meeting with a predetermined intention. And I saw another gentleman coming in to what I'll say is an ambush. Now, when I discuss jobs with customers, when I talk to employees, when I pretty much walk into any interaction, I feel like people can smell your intent that you have. And it was very apparent to me that Trump had an intention. They, for one, did this interview on the media, which would typically be behind closed doors, and it immediately went negative. And I feel like Trump did that with a predetermined intention. I do not feel like that was leadership, because, again, when I walk into those conversations, not that I'm negotiating world peace, not that I would want that weight of pressure on my shoulders, but I always want to seek first to understand and then be understood. And it didn't seem like that was the case there. It didn't seem it was relationship focused. It seemed, again, like it was a media stunt. So when I think about leadership, I think about how you put yourself out there. Prior to this, Lisa and I were talking, about Monsignor did. Now help me out, Lisa, because that was kind of your angle. Did J.D. Vance pray to a Monsignor or pray to the Catholic Church?
Yeah, he prayed with the one from North Dakota specifically. So that's why that caught my attention. And it's a little interesting because, we know there's some history there of contention, and there's been a little bit of a feud between Trump's administration and the Pope. And so I just kind of felt like it was very hypocritical in a way, because I don't feel like they genuinely care what's going on with the Pope. I really don't. And of course, then J.D. Vance started his speech talking about protection of freedom of religion. And I was taken back by that, because I just feel like they can never keep things focused. There's always a way for them to slip something in and change, like you said, you mentioned the intention of it. To me, it was really inappropriate. And I just feel like when it's convenient for them, they care.
Well, and the reason I brought it up, the Catholic inference, because you had mentioned Monsignor prior to this. And I, of course, went to the University of Mary, which is just about 5 miles south of where I am. And at the University of Mary, private Catholic school, which I actually didn't feel was very Catholic. Maybe I just missed those classes. But there was a very huge emphasis on servant leadership. And that's how I would describe my leadership style is leadership by serving. What can I do to help you grow? What can I do to help you, achieve? What can I do to help you fulfill your tasks, of which we're, working together at? And I feel like that servant leadership was not near on display with, Trump and J.D. Vance and President Zelensky. So I was a little disappointed with that. And, I'll segue to local leadership with the GOP. I see a lot of newly elected Republicans. If you have been watching the news, you would be probably two things I think stood out in session. Rios from Williston, every time he opens his mouth, something strange comes out. And I would also say that the two things that stand out in my mind are Austin Foss's floor speech in defense of, the right to marry who you want. And also Zach Ista had an absolutely amazing floor speech fighting for the people. So those are kind of my three highlights from session. And two of them that have to do with Democrats, of course, our team, have to do with standing up for people that are seemingly marginalized by the societal norms. And then, of course, all these crazy bills we're talking about. And that's what I want to bring leadership around to. Maybe I've harped on it before, but I feel like the GOP leadership should be mentoring and training these newly elected Republican representatives to help fund or help push forward good governments, which is what we talked about last week. So I really wish there would be a higher leadership focus in government. And, I don't know what to push that other than trying to support those people around me. And hopefully someone or 175,000 people will recognize that effort and get me in office one day. What are your thoughts, Lisa, again, on leadership? Obviously you were seeking a position of leadership. Do you have a leadership style, or have you given a lot of thought to that?
Absolutely. It's not to be self-serving. And you kind of touched on that a little bit ago. It's not, I'm doing this for the title, for the recognition, for the role. It's to genuinely help people. And I think that's a big difference between the two parties' leadership styles, is that when we have floor speeches like the one Rep Ista and Rep Foss made, that was not, this is about me. This is about people that I care about, my friends, my coworkers, my family. And I just don't see that from the other side so much. It's well, and of course, like you mentioned with the bills, it's always been about religion and their intentions, and but I've never really heard them talk about how this affects other people who they say they're protecting. It's my opinion. This is what I believe. It's never been about anybody else. And so that's what struck me so much about Ista's and Foss's speeches. And if you guys have not heard it, I would, both of us would recommend that you look them up. You can find them on Facebook and listen to them, and then listen to speeches prior to that. And just, you'll see the difference right there, day and night. And I think that's really what separates us from the others, and how I carry myself, is that it's always about how I can help others. And I do believe that I have proved that time and time again, well before I even got into politics. And I think that is something that I am proud of.
Well, no, it's funny, you guys, you might see me stutter or stumble on my words. I also want to try to get them right. And I'm thinking about this phrase from Paul Wellstone, in Minnesota. We all do better when we all do better. And I can't think of a more apparent phrase to describe leadership, to describe the intent of legislation, to describe the best possible thing that we can get out of government, is a situation that we're all set up to not only survive, but to thrive in our, in our economy, in our society. And it just makes sense to me. It's so easy to set people up for success, to try to ask them, President Zelensky, what do you need? How can we help? How can we work together? It seems easy, but yet what we see is the opposite. And I think it's because there's an intent getting pushed, and I don't necessarily think that it's all about mineral rights. Anyway, sorry for that national talk. We usually try to keep it local. Lisa, what's your local spin? Have you been paying attention? We just hit crossover a couple days ago. Anything that came out of the state session that you want to talk about?
Well, I think emotions are really high here. We've been put through a lot in just a short amount of time, both at the national level and local level. But what I really loved about this so far is just seeing everybody across the state of North Dakota coming together, speaking out. I mean, honestly, how collaborative we've been. And I really think that's what's influenced a lot of these bills being voted down. And I'm very proud of the work everyone has done. I am very curious. There's obviously particular bills that that are definitely on my radar as they move on to the Senate floor. And so I just want to kind of encourage everybody as well to don't lose that momentum. Keep paying attention. We're going to be seeing a lot of these bills that we've unfortunately seen pass. And I just don't want to see an opportunity missed there for us to, not have our voices heard, because it does help and it does matter. But I know there's a lot of group efforts as well with like peaceful protests and people going out ahead of things going to the Senate floor. So like I said, I'm just really encouraged by seeing a lot of that. And I hope it all really works out in our favor.
Well, one thing I'll call out too, up from your neck of the woods, Lisa, is a gentleman, Devin Mance. Devin Mance ran for, help me out, I'm sorry.
It was Hart board.
47 districts, all the candidates. I sometimes juggle them. We're in a couple with them together, but Devin Mance went for park board up in Minot this last cycle. Really well put together gentleman. He's pushing, is it Together for the Children? Is that the name of the organization?
Together for School Meals. And yes, he did a fantastic, phenomenal job with that. His energy and level of commitment to that was through the roof. And I feel like I message him often just to tell him, like, I'm still so incredibly impressed by your work. But yeah, he has been a huge asset to the Minot area. And I hope to see his name on a ballot soon again as well.
And again, I think that's a great example of someone that's pushing for something that'll be a betterment to society with no other intention than to provide that betterment. I don't think he's looking to self interest himself in any positions. He's just trying to do good by the neighborhood. So it's fun to see him develop over the years. And speaking of that, a good friend of mine this week for our long interview, as I mentioned, Katrina Christiansen is up next. We have a great interview with her. And, I've said this at a couple introductions of her, but the first time I met her was on Halloween, would have been in 2001 fall. She dressed up as a statue for her class as a teacher. And we did a pre-candidate interview with Michael Taylor, I believe, and myself. And she was dressed head to toe in costume. It was amazing to see her still answer the call of candidacy. It's been amazing to see her run for Senate twice and to see her develop over those cycles. And it's a person that I'm very proud to call a good friend. Next up, Katrina Christiansen. Hey guys, Patrick Hart here, of course, and I want to introduce an extremely good friend of mine, Katrina Christiansen, someone who's literally saved in my phone to this day as Senator Christiansen. And I do that because she's at that level. As a matter of fact, my good neighbor friend John says, I don't even think Katrina Christiansen, like, he doesn't think of her as senator. He thinks of her as Senator Majority Leader Christiansen.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. I haven't met John. How is this possible?
John's a good guy. He's kind of a closet Democrat from Wisconsin. John, I'll tell you what, does something that I hope that every listener and every political friend of mine does. John keeps a notebook. And every time he hears something that he hates about politics, he goes and writes about it. And he's got a notebook spanning about 10 years of politics. Imagine that as a resource.
Wow. That is really neat. No, I appreciate you sharing that. Well, I'm glad that we reached John. It's too bad we didn't make it to DC, but it's good to be home. It's good to be talking to you, Pat, and to the other listeners of the podcast. So,
well, Katrina, honestly, I'll tell you what. So I'm in my shop right now, and we're recording this, and we have a treadmill in there of which I spend time hating every second I'm on it. And as this podcast was in its infancy, it was just an idea. I thought, what amazing life that I get to live, and how blessed I feel because I get to talk to people like you regularly. And I thought on the treadmill, we need to share the conversations I have with amazing people like Katrina. We had Trigby a couple weeks ago. Of course, our electeds, Ryan Braunberger, last week. So thanks for coming on, and thanks for being my friend.
Hey, yeah, thanks for being my friend. You should enjoy running. I love it. So I ran 5 miles today, and it was one of the highlights. So
Besides the questions we're going to ask you, I'm going to stay off topic for a second, which might be even
okay.
better. I loved calling you last cycle when we were both running, and I could hear you running. Like you had your headphones in and you took over, and I could hear you panting and I could hear your rhythm. And you run every day, right? You're a runner?
Pretty much every day. Yeah, everybody pays if I don't run. So it's good. And I've been trying to increase my speed now. There's somebody that I used to work with out at the Cargill plant who has been training for the Mahahe out west. And so it's like feeling like I got to keep up with him. So it's been good.
Nice. So what's like a mile time? Are you sub 9, 8.5, sub 8?
You're so funny. No, I'm sub 10 trying to get to 9.
Okay.
So
My game when running halves, I've done a half, a couple 10Ks, a ton of 5Ks. I'm like a solid 9:25, 9:28, and I set it and forget it. I hit that pace. I don't stop for water. I don't use the bathroom. I don't slow down. I'm a consistent 9, just short of 9.5, and
no.
it.
No, I have to be careful. So I'm trying to get to 9. That's my goal. Want to do a half and get under 2 hours. So we'll see.
You know, when I work out and when I race, I listen to techno, which is like club music, dance music, which is not at all. But I really zoom in on like 132 beats a minute so that my feet are in sync with the beat. Is that too intense for you?
I don't know. I listen to Star Talk. So when I'm running,
Like radio talk, like podcasts,
like it's Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about physics and space. That's what I listen to.
there's no way I could do that. I need to have that driving.
It's really interesting. I am determined to learn something new every day, and usually that helps. So
Well, tell me, Katrina, we mentioned we were on the campaign trail. What are some highlights of your candidacy last cycle? What do you think? What were some the best?
I mean, of course, I loved, running with you and Trigby and going to events. And, when you go to small rural towns here in North Dakota and you meet with Democrats, sometimes you'll meet people who feel so isolated because they feel like they're the only ones in their community that care about other people and they want their government to be ethical. And I don't feel like that because I know everybody across the state. I don't feel alone. And so that's probably one of the things that I really have just been able to enjoy from the campaign. Even, I think it was Tuesday night, I was running at our indoor track facility, and a guy came up to me, an older gentleman, and he wanted to shake my hand. I was wearing a Katrina for Senate t-shirt, sweating, right? And he said, I voted for you 5 times. He was joking, right? But he shook my hand. And then this other younger guy, like in his 30s, I don't normally, those people don't come up to me that often and tell me they voted for me. He was like, I like your shirt. And so, that's really rewarding post campaign to still be able to talk to people and know that we reached them. My light went off, whatever. Anyway, so that's something that I really have enjoyed, just that continuing impact and seeing that, being connected to people and having great friends. So, yeah.
I liked the parades. I have a much easier, much quicker. I lived and died for each one of those parades. I honestly slammed the Red Bull right before it started and kind of got my gear in. And I loved the handshakes and all the people.
You are unique in that. I think I had the most fun at the NDSU homecoming parade when I had the water guns.
Yeah.
And squirting at the fraternities. That was fun. So
at one of our first, we were up in Washburn and someone had an air horn And I was like, God, I have to get an air horn. And I bought, of course, contractor Patrick here bought a DeWalt air horn.
Oh, Jesus.
And I used it twice, battery operated. It looks like an impact driver, like a screw gun. And it's so loud, I'm afraid to ever use it again.
No, I do not miss the parade. So I have thought occasionally that I really want to go back up to what's that event up near where your parents live?
Oh, is that
Where the
August in Mountain?
where the Norwegians live.
August the Deuce in Mountain, August 2nd.
Yeah, I want to go back up to Mountain because they had that great bar in the nearby town. So good. Yeah, it was still. Yeah, I want to go back to that bar. It was the best bar I've been in North Dakota for sure.
I drove the Mustang up there, my campaign car, and then I went to August the Deuce, and there was a car show. And my car was dirty because I put like 90,000 miles on it last summer. But I just backed
Are
it
you
in.
serious?
Yeah, I just backed it in like it was a car in the car show. It was dirty. Everything else was shiny. And I didn't get any grades on it, but I don't know. Kind of funny.
Well, you just have fun with it. I think that's the thing about the campaign, and to not be deterred, right? Like your podcast, like, man, I wish there were things that had gone our way, right? But it didn't work out that way, but that doesn't mean we stop. So,
I would say now that I'm really thinking of all the events, a 10 out of 10 event of mine were two of them. It was the Breakfast Club here in Bismarck with all those angry men. I had a really good time at that one because a lot of times on the cycle, we got a lot of friendlies at our events, Dem events. And that one, we kind of faced some feedback, and I liked that challenge on the spot on the microphone. And I really liked the iBand meeting at Radisson. I had a really good time at that. Really great organization. If no one's heard of them, iBand's a cattle organization.
the Independent Beef Producers Association of North Dakota.
Amazing people. Yeah, I called him just the other day from your video. I'm sorry, the name is
Frank.
Frank. Yeah.
Frank.
He had a big piece of legislation coming through, so I just wanted to make sure.
Did they get it through?
They didn't know.
That's annoying.
But almost all of our Democratic caucus voted for it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's too bad that didn't go through.
What's your take on politics post our election? I mean, a lot's gone on. Can you believe that President Trump has only been president for a month?
No, I feel like I've aged 5 years in the last month. I would say I do want to swing back to the session here in North Dakota, and they just go to Bismarck, the supermajority, every year, and they look for ways to enrich themselves. And I thought it was so ridiculous that our legislators voted against the free lunch bill for North Dakota students, and then they get free lunch from taxpayers every day that they're in Bismarck. And am I wrong? Didn't they vote to have annual sessions?
They did. And of course, that's going to cross over. We'll see. And I'm sorry, there's so many bills. If that came out of the House or the Senate. So
it was the House. It was the House. But I thought, man, they're doing this because they want per diems. They're just going to come up with a bunch of dumb bills. They're not going to do anything differently. I actually got into an argument with my legislator. I live in District 12. Bernie Satcham is my legislator. And lots of people think he's a nice guy because they forget about the things that he does in the odd year of our cycle. And then, 2 years almost go by before he's up for re-election, right? But he voted to defund Prairie Public. But he did it in a way that was political, right? He voted on a bill that said it is now the policy, it will be the policy if it passes in the Senate, that the state cannot give federal or state money to public media. And he thought, well, no, I'm just defunding. They have a really good balance sheet right now. They don't need our resources. And I thought that was irresponsible because it looks political, right? And he's like, no, we've been exchanging lots of emails. We're a resource constrained state. We can't afford this. Well, Bernie Satchram voted to fund giving 40% of a public student tuition in a district to a parent to use toward private school. Well, you're defunding our public schools when you do that. You're taking taxpayer money and you're giving it to somebody who might well have a better balance sheet than Prairie Public for their kid to go to private school. And I know that Bernie's a very religious guy. Most of them are religious. Only 10% of North Dakota students have access to even being able to attend a private school. The private schools don't have to let them in. They don't have to provide special education. They don't have to do, independent education plans, IEPs. They're not required to do anything that we expect and have to provide in our public schools. And I came to the realization, and I sent him this in an email last night, and he said, well, we're just going to have to agree to disagree. And I sent him back an email that said, no, Bernie, what I've come to realize is that you don't understand what you're voting on. And then he said, I'm going to assume you're a good person with good intentions. And I was annoyed that he implied that I wasn't a good person, and I'm not going to be cowed by my elected representative. He doesn't understand the difference between blocking funding and zeroing out a budget item because they have good money right now. That's pretty evident to me. He doesn't understand. And that he doesn't see spending money on taking public dollars and putting them into the hands of parents who want to send their kids to private school as defunding public education. I just can't, it's just not there. He doesn't understand it. So I actually talked to somebody earlier in the week that, Bismarck just keeps getting dumber. And, no, that sounds mean, but it's real. It is very real.
Well, I'll tell you, you actually gave me an idea for a reoccurring segment throughout session, which is my senator worse than yours? Because in District 30 here, my own Diane Larson, I guess, and I haven't talked about this on the podcast, right before a vote to give
oh my God. I know what you're going to say. Go ahead. Sorry.
Ability to put a casino southwest of Grand Forks, referred to them as getting their funding from cartels. And what I think is especially egregious is that I've talked to some of the electeds, and they said that days before she got pulled aside and told that that is obviously not where their funding mechanism comes from. And as a matter of fact, I've seen Jamie Azure come out and say that Native Americans are supporting going after the cartels. And there's a program and funding or people going down to fight that element. And so for the fact for her to get premature counseling saying this is not the case and then to bring it up anyway, really questioning the intent on that. What's the intent?
It was premeditated and it was intentional, and it was to lay seeds of doubt, right? I mean, we see many of our elected Republican legislators woefully misinformed, or they are spreading misinformation. And I think it's time that we, take the fight to them. I mean, Jamestown, where I live, has 4 out of the 5 elementary schools get free and reduced lunch, right? Sometimes the poverty is like over 70% in these schools. And you have our legislators who are like, oh, well, these lazy kids or these lazy parents are just going to eat more. And it's like, you're not looking at the data, are you? You're not making an informed decision. It's a political one.
Well, let's stick with state for a second, because obviously I want to federal, but so school lunches went down, and what's interesting is that it kind of went down twice. There was 2 bills, Lori Beth Hager's bill,
Zach is this.
they were going to take money from the legacy fund interest earnings and fund it. There was another bill, House Bill 1475, Republican bill from a House rep up in Williston. They were going to take general fund dollars to fund it, and both of those went down. But I'll tell you where I want to take that is, what are your thoughts on an initiated measure for school lunches? Is that something that might be in the future for Ms. Christensen?
Well, I think it is something that is worthy of the voters of North Dakota deciding on rather than these, you know, citizen legislators that go to Bismarck and eat taxpayer paid lunches. I think we should decide at this point because we might know what's better for us than the people we keep sending to Bismarck.
It's amazing that that's even a thing. Like, we know better. Like, the representatives are not listening to the constituents.
No, I went to school on Wednesday to drop off a check for my son because I needed to give money. Power school, whatever. I won't get into the reasons why I can't get into power school, but everybody had their password reset and I haven't figured out how to reset mine. So, but I needed to take a check and I was on the phone with my coworker and I was telling her, oh, I just wish that we didn't have to, I would pay taxes so that I wouldn't have to go to each one of my kids' schools and pay the various lunch bills. Like, I'm fine with that, right? And I get that these, Bismarck GOP lawmakers are, they have this gross misunderstanding of the people that live in their communities, that they're all lazy and they all just want a free lunch. The people that want a free lunch are in Bismarck right now, shooting down good bills like Representative Hager's, or writing stupid ones like transferring wealth or, public dollars to wealthy families to send their kids to private school. Shiloh, what's the other one? Bismarck.
You put me on the spot now because
Sorry.
No, we were just there. We played volleyball there last week for sister had a game.
No, that's why they're doing it.
And
I am feisty because, what I see in Bismarck is Bismarck legislators know how to take care of themselves. The ones that have tenure know how to take care of themselves. They know how to funnel money into their communities in the ways that they want. And I have heard Senator Josh Boucher talk about how while these funds often get allocated, they don't get spent, right? So they say they allocated $60 million for childcare, but they've only spent like less than 20 million. And I think about a community like mine where $5 million of investment would do so much good. But those miserly Scrooges in Bismarck can only see fit to pass offensive bills or bills that benefit niche, well-off people.
There's a golden dome at St. Mary's in North Bismarck. It's golden. It's like a landmark. You can see it from miles around.
Totally. You want to do that? That's fine. You've got an endowment. These schools have endowments. Don't tell me you're going to take away PBS and all of the learning resources away from all of the poor kids in this state that you refuse to feed so that you can give money to the Catholic Church. There's no way around the wrongness of that. And so we should refer that. That's what I think.
Incredible. Well, I think a referral is going to be actually a second thing that we'll have on the ballot next cycle. And, I really am curious to see who's going to get behind that. But it'll be
good.
It'll be an interesting next 18 months.
For sure.
So I'll tell you, you were kind of talking about the kids being demonized, being lazy. And I'll use that as a transition into federal. When I see what's going on federally, I see this attack on federal workers. I see them being demonized again and again and again. And I see an attack and a demonization on migrants, on first generation Americans. And I don't think either of that's fair. Of course, we're seeing hearing this language about deportation. And I, as a contractor, of course, where my head goes, my train of thought, my perspective is like, how does that work? Like, how do you logistically get 12 million people, round them up, go through due process, house them, feed them, let the due process work out? How does that work? And I don't think it can work. I think it's just bloviation. I think it's just talking points. And I think it's being designed to beat that population down?
Well, with the whole deportation due process, immigrant crackdown, I don't think it's going the way that they thought it would, and I'm not sure that they really care about following the due process there. So it is concerning. One of my best friends has dual citizenship in Mexico and the United States of America. And she has been pulled over multiple times now in a community that she's lived in for over a decade, just because of the color of her skin.
I grew up in the middle of farm field, North Dakota, in Pembina. We had sugar beets, and a very normal thing back in the 80s and 70s was to have what we all referred to as a migrant house. It was about a 500 square foot house. When the seasonal workers came up, they stayed literally on our farm next to our homes. Amazing, hardworking people. I'm in construction. I work hand in hand next to people that come up that work, and there's a tremendous work ethic, a tremendous community ethic. When we hear things, rapist, violent people coming across the border, that's completely contrary to my experience, with that segment of our population.
And I'm going to swing back to the election, right? Because there is this concern about the border, right? Whether that's, just making sure that we're processing those immigrants in a humane way and the asylum seekers, and wanting to have a secure border with humane processing. And I think there's also a concern about having fentanyl be trafficked into our communities. But I was reading actually that the Doge, when they canceled some of their the federal funding that they canceled to save money, they actually canceled a program that was trying to keep fentanyl from getting through Mexico into the United States. And so, this haphazard approach that we see by entities at the Doge to save money is putting us in danger. It continues to put our communities in danger. It's demoralizing for the federal workforce. Again, it's that application of lazy. I know many federal workers, and they take their oath to serve the public very seriously. I've been laid off twice. And I think about those federal workers who were in their dream job. The rigor that it takes to get hired by the federal government is so high. And lots of the people who leave the federal government don't like the fact that they have such a high bar for performance, right? And it's just so upsetting to know that so many families have been pulled into that same storm that I've experienced, and they don't know what it looks like when they get out of it, and it was completely uncalled for, and we're going to see serious economic harm come from this. We've already seen the housing market cool, jobless numbers are going to be coming up, and consumer confidence is declining. This isn't what people wanted.
Well, right. No. And, I came from Pembina, North Dakota, again, farm town on the border, a significant government population with the border there. A lot of my friends from high school, my parents, my mother spent a whole career in, serving the government. And I mean, that's definitely taken seriously. Absolutely. There's a significant federal footprint here in North Dakota. And
over 7,000 employees in a community like Jamestown. We have federal employees on Minot and in Bismarck and all across the state. And once you take those federal dollars out, that's actually like losing 2 jobs.
Sure.
And those jobs don't get made. I mean, they're not here. With those resources and the certainty of it, it's actually incredibly destabilizing to the economy at the local level for where you lose those jobs.
Well, and then too, I believe in government. Could it be more efficient? There are definitely efficiencies that could happen, but I really truly believe that our government is here to make our society safer, better place to live. And when we start defunding things without really looking at the second and third level impacts, that's devastating.
So I want to call out efficiency as a definition. I despise it. Elon Musk is not an engineer. He's a physicist. Efficiency is just the definition of work out over work in. Has nothing to do with performance, has nothing to do with outcomes. You talk about your Mustang all the time, so you know, like a Toyota Prius, right? You get really good efficiency with that car, right? 60 miles to the gallon, instantaneous acceleration. But would you want to race in that puppy? No.
Not my car.
No, it's not designed to perform well in a performance setting. It's designed to be efficient.
Sure.
And so I think one of the things that we need to think about when we talk about efficiency is that it's just baloney. And what we really want to do is maximize the things that we want to achieve and minimize the things we don't like, which is the fraud, right? And there probably is fraud, but you're not finding it this way. You're an accountant, right? You need a forensic accountant. You need to identify those people that are taking advantage of the system, like Rick Scott, the Florida senator. He was fined for some Medicare billing issues, right? Like those things do exist, but it's not the employees. They're just the low-hanging fruit. And honestly, the Doge and our current president don't care about people. They're not worried about these families. They fired a bunch of scientists that were trying to prevent bird flu from spreading. They fired the people that knew our nuclear weapon secrets. They're not good at this.
Well, and I would hate for those people to leave the government with a chip on their shoulder.
Oh, the weapons people? Oh, yeah.
Let's treat them well in retirement.
Yeah, well, and we fired the FAA employees, and we had just this week, another near miss at an airport. Yep. Even if you think, oh, well, I'm not harming these exact individuals, they're harmed by all the chaos and fear and threats. They're not improving performance. It's going to be a long 2 years until we take back Congress.
Well, absolutely. And on that, and on 2 years, how do you think our reps are doing? What are you excited about on their performance since?
Well, I would say that Julie Fedorchak was picked by Pat Finken to run, and as the Republican that had the support from the oil and gas won. And so she doesn't have to do anything. She's a Republican in the House, and she was picked, and she doesn't really have any interest to serve our country. I think that's pretty obvious. For all the vets who've been fired by the Doge, she cried a lot of crocodile tears on the campaign trail against Trigby about her dad and all of these vets that she cares so much about. What about all these vets that are getting fired by the Doge? I'm sorry. These people need to be called out for their callous ineptitude, and that is Julie Fedorchak. It's disgusting. You want to talk about Senator Hoeven? He's just there for the lunches and to rub shoulders with people. He doesn't care about Ukraine. He doesn't care about the U.S. on the world stage. He doesn't care about democracy. That's pretty obvious, right? I mean, the United States of America voted with the jackals. We voted with North Korea. We voted with Iran. What gross. And these people, like Senator Hoeven and Representative Fedorchak, just step in line. They don't think about the people here in North Dakota who actually, I think a lot of people support the Ukrainians. And my former opponent, Senator Kramer, misrepresented, I think, the attention voters have been giving his office regarding all their concerns with Trump's appointees and the Doge process. And so I'm a little bit perturbed by that. And I also think that Senator Kramer is looking for a cabinet position because he calls Trump a genius all the time with the things that he says about Ukraine. I mean, could your nose be any browner, dude? Like, really? Like, where's the farm bill? We've lost export markets. You guys aren't working on crap there. Just because you're a Republican, you got elected, it's like, it's hard some days, Pat, because it could have been us. We could be making a difference. And that's probably the hardest thing to see.
When I see Kelly Armstrong, of course, being governor, and I see instances like Kristen Baser getting called up to national, and there's going to be an appointment, and we're going to appoint her replacement. And of course, I immediately think, oh my gosh, it's going to be Erin Olda. She's perfect for that job. And a great example of how I would love to step in the position that I ran for and make change that's going to make an impact for North Dakotans. But unfortunately, I'm not in that position, so I am still fighting. So when you see all this chaos, this confusion, do you ever think to yourself what's really going on? And we're focusing on Doge instead of what's behind the scenes? Are those ever thoughts?
Well, I mean, obviously it's a grift, right? I mean, we saw today that Elon Musk set himself up to get that Verizon contract. I mean, he's just scooping up. He is the one that is sucking on, the government well there, and just drinking up as much money as he can. And so I'm not surprised at all. The Cybertruck thing, apparently, the Trump White House, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, had said, oh no, this was a Biden agreement, that they were going to buy all these Cybertrucks. And actually, it turns out that was a lie. And so I think the thing that we need to do is steel ourselves with the fact that what the Doge says is a lie, right? They're not good at this. They're out to enrich themselves, and they don't care about people. And so what can we do to take care of the people that are around us, right? What can we do to make sure that our community is blunted from maybe some of the worst impulses of the situation that we have going on right now, and to hold our representatives accountable? You and I have discussed having a town hall. We invite Kramer and Hoven, see if they show up, and if they don't, man, we'll just answer the questions. These people are supposed to be serving us. They're getting paid to do so. And much like my representative Satcham, I'm not sure that they understand what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, you mentioned the contract with Tesla and they said that Biden did it, and now they're walking that back, or let's just call it what it is. They're lying about it.
Yeah, it's a lie. They misrepresented it.
I'll tell you, I'll make this claim live on air. I cannot tell a lie. I'm accountable. I have integrity. And I just there's so much going on in my life to have to keep track of that and to explain yourself out of a situation. Just tell the truth.
No, I think, Pat, that kind of honesty died a long time ago in politics. No, I've become, no, it just did. If you need to be exciting, Pat, you need to be enthralling, you need to be strong. You don't actually need to tell the truth or do good things to get elected.
Well, that's what I'm really disappointed about, because I was on the trail with a bunch of individuals, yourself, Trigby, Merrill, Pepcorn, and I think that we could really, actually, honestly run a good government, that we would be good at our jobs. I'm not exciting. I wish I was. I wish I could see 3-pointers too.
I wasn't saying that you weren't exciting, but that's, yeah.
I think that was funny, like Trigby. I'm not, but I think I would be really good at running the government and helping set better decisions.
I think you do so well with people, Pat, and you care about them, and that is evident. I often think about, I teach a policy class, and there's this quote, and I want to write about it. I'm just working so much right now that I haven't had a chance to write, but that what we get with laws, instead of getting a log cabin, right, we get a pile of logs, right? We just have all these things that are piled on top of each other, and they're not designed to an outcome. And so I agree. I feel like it's hard I've struggled to articulate what it means to be a problem solver, but to think about how would you structure things so that you could get these things that you want, and you could minimize the things that you don't want. And sometimes, like with education, it's never going to be efficient. Everybody's different. And I wish people would stop saying they need to make education efficient. No, you want kids to love to learn. That's what you want. That's your real goal.
Well,
sorry.
No, no, no. I have a quick joke. It's not a joke. I'm serious. Are you really teaching a policy class?
Yeah, I teach environmental policy. It's really hard right now because
Are you,
it's depressing.
are you going to teach that like fall semester?
I don't think I'll teach it in the fall. No, no.
Okay.
It's called,
That'd
yeah, no.
be fun. I'll enroll in Jamestown.
Oh, I am, I think the students are always shocked to learn that it's not what they've been told isn't how it works.
Sure. Um, so here's statement number 2 on your education. In that old man's club, you know what I mean? The coffee club we went to, the anger, they're
Yeah.
so angry.
Yes.
They actually asked me if I was sure I was a Democrat because when I talked about keeping kids accountable and trying to strengthen our educational standards, they really looked at me with their jaws bounced off the table. And I said, retaking tests, late assignments. I said we have to teach accountability. We have to teach it in school. And they couldn't believe that was coming out of a Democrat's mouth. But I think those are lessons that you're not going to get graded on, but that are going to stick with you throughout life. We need that accountability. We need that in society more.
I think that it's funny that they asked you if you were sure. Maybe we just got a very different group of people showing up at that breakfast. But I think and I'm not in elementary school or secondary school, right? Like I teach college students. And so what I am trying to achieve is critical thinking, right? Can you look at this and understand it and then beyond understanding being what you're told, ask questions about it? How do I make it better? How could it fail? What am I not seeing here? Right? Like being able to do those things is really important. And so that's what I try to do with the students that I teach. I think I'm going to leave elementary and higher secondary education to those teachers to tell me what we need to be doing. I trust the teachers.
Love it. Hey, can I end on this one? I wanted
Yeah.
to start with it, but I went into highlights. So Democrats in the state of North Dakota, I feel like every time I have to answer why I'm a Democrat, it's because I'm getting painted with a swath that someone heard what Democrats are from Fox News. How do you think Democrats should be defined here in North Dakota?
I want people in their minds when they hear Democrat to see a smiling face and a handshake. Like, I don't even want to use words. I want that image. Like, hey, I'm just like you. I care about you. In fact, I'm kind of fun to hang out with. You should have a drink with me sometime. We have a good time, right? Like that sort of the words can't permeate the image or they can't get past the image that they have, which is that, we've got this right-wing media machine who has demonized Democrats. And we have, I think that many of the legislators and politicians in Bismarck are also guilty of this from the Republican Party of demonizing their former Democrats that used to work with them. And so that image I think might be more impactful than words. But if I had to say the words, um, a Democrat is somebody who cares about you and your future and your kids' future.
That's spot on. And I don't know what more I could ask for a politician than that.
Well, Democrat, yeah. But I thank you. I think that's who we are. And I've gotten a lot of you should run as an independent just because I've got this D behind my name. Pat, I'm a Democrat, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not less of a person because I'm a Democrat. In fact, makes me pretty special.
I agree. Do you have any final words you want to say to your constituency, your voters, your North Dakota?
I miss you. I'll see you soon.
I appreciate your time. Thanks, Katrina.
Hey, Pat, you're amazing. Take care, man.
What an amazing interview with Katrina Christiansen. I don't know how many have had the opportunity to meet her, but I have always been super impressed with her. I think she is, in a lot of ways, to many people, a great role model. She is just genuine. She's down to earth. She's just very energetic, and she doesn't give up. She is a fighter, and I just have so much respect for all of the work that she has done. And she has left a great impression and memories for every North Dakotan that she met on her campaign trail. And so I agree, Pat. I'm really excited to see where her career takes off and what she's going to be doing next. I think people need to be on the lookout for her. um, so yeah, it's always great to hear from her. And I'm just going to end with just a reminder as well, with all these reorgs happening across the state. Please check out our website for updates to these reorgs, and make sure that you know when your district one is happening. And as always, we encourage you to bring a friend, bring somebody new. You just never know what that will turn into and who that might be our next leader within our party. Here in Minot, I know we've had a couple of changes to our reorg, and I apologize for that. The final time and date for that is going to be March 15th at noon. We changed it to noon because that happens to be the same day that the legislative forum falls on, which is from 9 to 11. So if you're interested in going to that, just hop on over to our reorg and come join us. We have food, and we've got great speakers that are going to be there, Jamie being one of them. Just kind of want to give him a shout out, that I'm just very grateful and appreciate his level of commitment to going to these reorgs. People are noticing, and it's very much appreciated. So again, March 15th at noon at the IBEW hall.
Well, I'll tell you, I wasn't going to say this, but listening to you, Lisa, I'm a storyteller. I got a story about Katrina that's worth telling, and that's better than the statue story. Again, all the places you'll go. I found myself one time in a photo line in National Harbor, Maryland, which is southeast of Washington, D.C. And I was going to actually get the privilege to get my photo taken with President Biden. And I mean, talk about a moment you've probably imagined your whole life. Wouldn't that be cool if I got to meet the president? Well, I was gonna. And I was standing in there in a line with all my peers and colleagues, and I felt underdressed. I had a vest on and no sport coat. And I was waiting. Of course, I was last because that's kind of my MO. And I finally got around what we call pipe and drape, that made this little room about the size of the room I'm standing in, 10 by 10, 10 by 12. And there was President Biden. And the two things I thought is that he was surprisingly tall. And when I shook his hands were surprisingly soft. I didn't know what to say. So after some quick small talk, he said, "What can I do for you?" And I said, "You got to get anyone in the DNC to give a shit about my candidate, Katrina Christiansen. She's in a three-way race at the time." And I was like, we really got a shot to win. Katrina's put together. She's got amazing candidacy, amazing campaign staff, and we need people at DNC to care. And he said, "I will." Something in the back triggered us to turn, take our picture, and we left. And I thought, oh my God, I blew it. I blew it. Moment to meet the most powerful man in the world. And I talked about Katrina Christiansen, and then he turned around and said, "Get her name down. Let's try to get them some help in North Dakota." So just a story I figured about Katrina Christiansen. Honestly, you guys, I kind of cried a little bit afterwards. Went and hung out with my friend Jane Klebe from Nebraska. But again, come to these reorgs, lean in. You'll never see what you're capable of until you put your best foot forward. And with that, you guys, I have a quote. The first week when we started doing quotes, I didn't know it was going to be a thing, and now I love it. But I heard this week, and I want to pass it forward. When the state falls, heroes will rise. And I'll ask you, I'll challenge you, what is your role this campaign cycle, and how will you rise? I appreciate you listening this week.